Hello, CJHS students and families. This is Assistant Principal Mr. Peck going over the CJHS iPad Handbook. I thought it might be a good idea to create a video for this year. We do have paper copies of the handbook here in the office, and also an online version on the school's website that you can access. But if you really think about it, there's a ton of stuff that's going home these last few days when students are coming back to school. Permission slips for this and handbooks for that. So I know sometimes it's really hard to read through everything. So this gives you the option to hear about the iPad handbook and what's inside it and what's really important about it, and just kind of listen for a few minutes. And then after you listen to this, you're going to get all the information you would get if you read it thoroughly. So you'll be able to sign off on the iPad permission slip, and students will begin getting iPads next week. So the handbook that you are looking at, if you have the paper copy or if you are online taking a look at it or listening to this video as well, is all the information and policies for the CJHS iPads and their accessories. So any iPad that comes home or any iPad that students are using here at school, this handbook kind of covers all the things that could happen and do happen sometimes with these devices. So we do ask that you review the document, or in this case, listen to the video. We also suggest listening it, with the parent and kid together. Kids were able to get this information in school today, or yesterday, or whenever you're listening to this video. But it is always nice to listen to it and watch it together. That way, if you guys have any questions, you can talk about it. So the iPads are going to be coming out next week, and as a district, we do reserve the right to collect those and inspect them at any time. If we feel like they're not being used appropriately, or we get a tip that something's going on with iPads that we should be aware of, we can collect those. They are district property. Students are given the devices with a school Apple ID already installed into the devices. If a student does sign out of that school ID and then sign into their own, that can be a problem with how we manage those devices here at school. So we ask the students do not do that. In the past, we've had students that have done that, and then there is discipline that could possibly be enforced there, or even the loss of the device for the year as well. So that's really important. The device, the case, charger, cable, all that stuff that comes with the iPad should be returned at the end of the school year in good condition for maintenance and for cleaning. And there are some replacement costs that are put into place with those iPads if some things are not returned or if things are damaged as the year goes on. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So when you have the iPad at school, one thing that students need to know is there's no expectation of privacy of anything that's found on the device or on school supplied accounts. If you're using the school iPad and you're using the school account, there's no expectation that a teacher or principal, assistant principal can see what is on that device. The camera and the audio video recording is sometimes where this becomes a problem. We do have in the handbook that it's prohibited, but we do understand sometimes students will use it for a project. They will use it for an assignment. So our best practice is to make sure you ask permission of somebody before recording them. If you record them and it's discovered that it was without their permission, discipline can be enforced there as well. And really, it's just think about you. If you would want to be recorded without your permission, or a picture taken without your permission, and then it used in a way you didn't like it to be used, there can be a problem there. I think everybody can understand that. Students must be responsible to bring their iPads to class, and not having it is not an excuse for not completing that work. We will talk a little bit about what happens if you maybe forget it on accident one day or it's not charged. We do have a process for that, but it is a student's responsibility to have them. It is recommended that you keep your device in a supervised area in your possession, secured in a locker when you don't have it. If a device is found, I usually will do a pretty good job of tracking down the students, saying, "Hey, I found your iPad. Please take care of it." But if it's starting to happen day after day or once or twice a week over the course of the year, sometimes we will have to think about the privilege of having that iPad and having that device if we're not able to take care of it. If a student doesn't have their iPad or if it's not charged, we do have a system for them to request a loaner at school. In Miss Vogel's art room, she has the loaner cart. Loaner devices don't go home, but a student can have a loaner at school. However, we do have a policy in place. If a student has a loaner more than 3 times, after that 3rd time, a lunch detention will be assigned for each checkout. And so it's just trying to keep students responsible for bringing their own device and having it charged. iPads should be fully charged when the day begins. And failure to do this might result in a change of plan as well. In the past, we've come up with a system of charging it in the office at night instead of being able to take it home because iPads were coming back the next day with 10%, 5%, things like that. Just a fun fact about these devices, they should last all day as long as you are charging them at night. We had students turn in iPads back in May, and some of them left them on, and I was going through the stack of them just a couple of days ago, and there were a few iPads still on. They'd been on May, June, July, into August, so almost 3 full months these devices had been on, and were still on. Yes, I know nobody's using it, but my point is they are holding a charge very well. So if your iPad is charged to 100% or pretty close to 100%, then you should be able to have a fully charged iPad throughout the day. They should be closed and carried during passing periods, and with the sound, make sure that they are muted. Sometimes teachers will allow students to have them unmuted for something they're doing in class, but sound should not be going off on the iPads in the halls and lockers and things like that. The school does have restrictions of apps and websites that are not allowed, and we take care of that on our end through our security system. We do have protocols in place. Students, in the past have tried to get around those security protocols, and that is in our handbook of something that should not be attempted. If something happens to your device, we ask that you notify Mr. Peck, Mrs. Vogel, or Mrs. Molatoris, just because I know sometimes kids and parents and family members or guardians might know a lot about repairing these devices, but one thing we don't want to happen is you try to fix it and it actually makes it a bigger problem. Please turn it into us and we'll make sure we get it taken care of. We do have the AirDrop function on the iPads where teachers use that to share documents and files immediately to their class right away and just drop it onto their screen. However, we have seen that be a problem sometimes in class with students using it and sharing things and interrupting learning going on in their room or others. So it is something that can be taken off of devices and discipline can be assigned if not used appropriately. Students, like if anything else, they're responsible for their files and data being appropriate, internet history being appropriate, and students should not access another individual's stuff or information on their devices without permission. And really, we didn't have a big problem with that last year, but just something that could happen. Students should only be accessing their own information. The apps that are on the device when students get it should remain on there unless the district takes them away. We have the ability to add apps and push them out to grade levels or push them out to every student, or when a teacher's done using something specifically, taking it off the iPad. Apps that are not provided by us should not be discovered on that device. So of course we don't have Facebook and Snapchat and Instagram and those things available on our iPads. We have the students signed into the Apple account that we give them, and if they sign out and use their own Apple ID and get apps that are unauthorized, then it's possible that the device will be gone for the year and students will lose that privilege. Now, it sounds like I've been saying a lot of things that students can't do, but here are some things that students can do, and I encourage them to do. Personalize your device. Change your home screen. For me, it'd be St. Louis Cardinals or Chicago Bears or something like that. Put on your favorite team or your favorite band or a picture of you and your friends. You can personalize that screen with things that are appropriate. Chicago Cubs would not be appropriate, so of course that would be illegal. The students are required to passcode protect their iPad. We do have them do that when we give it out to them. We encourage students to pick a number that only they would know or a word that would make sense to them so that if their iPad is found, somebody else can't get into their device. If they don't have a passcode set up, then it's kind of free game if somebody picks up the device, and we don't want that. We ask that you don't add stickers to your device or cases just for wear and tear on those. But of course, change that home screen, personalize it in a way that will make it unique to you. When at home, the school obviously can't govern everything that happens with these devices. And so just like when there's video games and phones and all that stuff at home, parents and guardians at that time are responsible for monitoring their students' use of the internet, the apps, and things like that. So some things we encourage parents and guardians to do: talk about their expectations with their kids, just like you would with a cell phone or anything else. This is what I expect. These are the rules. If somebody else in the household uses the device, that's just kind of a risk that students take. We ask that students are the only ones using the device, because if, let's say, a sibling gets on there and does something that is against the handbook, it would fall back on the student, being the student's responsibility. It is their device, so they need to be the ones responsible for it. For care, definitely, again, students are responsible for taking care of this device. The device does have the ability to be locked remotely, meaning if a student loses it, we can go in and lock it, and we call it a ping. We can send a ping to it and try to figure out where it is, but then it would allow other people who find it to not be able to access the device. We just recommend keeping track of it. Don't lend your device to anybody else, because like I said earlier, what they do is the student's responsibility. One that sounds simple but happens all the time: keep your device off the floor. Very easy for somebody to step on it and break it. Try to use only at home or school. It's understandable. You might be at a siblings ball game or a school play practice or something, and you're trying to get something done, but just using it in public, that's going to increase that chance of something happening to that device. Don't leave it in a hot car, obviously. Can melt the device and the stuff inside the device that makes it work. And the case should be returned, just general wear and tear. No alterations, no heavy damages. We ask students try to keep care of these devices as if they were their own, and really they are for the time that they are here at school. It's their device to use, so try to take pride in that. The screen obviously is glass. Glass can crack. We recommend not placing objects at all on top of the device. The case is strong, but even with the case closed, we've seen devices break. We've seen screens crack. Be careful about putting them in your backpack. That's an important part too. You get a lot of books in there. It may not be a good idea to set your iPad in there at that time. So it seems silly that I have to mention it, but your iPad is not a ball. It's not a paddle. It's not a frisbee. If you throw it or hit something with it, it's probably going to break, and that full replacement cost, we'll go over that here in a little bit, is $300. I don't have that lying around, and I can't imagine many students do either, just to pay for an iPad. Keep it away from food or drinks. If you're going to clean it, which I recommend wiping it down every now and then, use a soft lint-free cloth. Household sprays can sometimes cause damage to the screen and also damage to the charging port and speaker area. Just some extra tips for parents. In the handbook, we added a few things. Just some guidelines. These aren't necessarily things that we say you have to follow, but if you're thinking, hey, my kid's going to have this device and it's going to have internet access, how can I keep them safe? Just some of these. Take those extra steps to protect your child with security settings. Talk about where is appropriate to go online, and I would recommend even looking at their iPad, checking out their history, things like that. Know who your students are talking to. If they are on accessing a site that they can have conversation with others, know who they're talking with. Understand the privacy policies that go into sites that students might be going to. If they're using a game site or things like that, understand what the privacy policies are. One thing that we recommend is limiting that time, setting a limit, 30 minutes a night or an hour a night of stuff that maybe isn't school related, not giving a ton of free time. Always report things that you think might be online threats. The greatest part about, I think, working here is we have a great resource officer, Officer Bennett, who is always able to take those reports. And so if you notice something or you want to report something, please contact us and we'll make sure it gets checked out. Help your child develop a routine. I hear parents say a lot that, they're not sure their kid's on their device at night, and how do I handle that? Well, get a routine started. maybe you don't have the device, in the bedroom or in certain parts of the house. Maybe it has to stay in the kitchen or stay in the living room. Get a routine going. Make sure you take a look, know what the apps are. Even have your students show you what apps are you using at school. Have them open those up on the device. And then finally, you're probably doing this right now since you're going over the video, but read the handbook, and we recommend you read it or listen to this with your kid. And that way you guys can have a conversation about it. All right, we're getting close to being done. Some parents and students and families may not want to participate, and if that is the case, you do not have to sign the handbook agreement. If that happens, though, the student will not receive an iPad, and every iPad-based, activity or assignment that might be happening in class, then teachers will come up with an alternate assignment for them to do. We can come up with an agreement. We did this last year, where the school can have the iPad kept at school instead of brought home. And when that happens, we'll have devices that are checked out from the office each day and returned to the office when the day is complete. And, sometimes that goes really well. I think we had, 10 to 15 students at any time last year that were not taking their devices home. They were just checking them out here in the office. The bottom bullet point there, we actually took out of the handbook. We are going to have 6th grade students check out their iPads or have their own devices. They're not going to check them out from their teachers. They're actually going to have their own devices. So don't worry about that bottom red bullet point. All right, if there are damages, parents are responsible for paying for those, and it is district property. The administration will determine if the damage was accidental or negligent and sign the fee for that. And the reason why we look at that is because there are some different price levels for things. There are some things that we know will happen. Sometimes the device will break. It'll have a mechanical error that isn't the fault of a student at all. Sometimes, hopefully not, but there could be natural disasters. Maybe there's a really dangerous storm and, the device is in the house that was destroyed or in part of the school building that had water in it or something. So we understand natural disasters and fires. We also have theft on here, but that goes for as long as there's no other portion of the handbook being violated. I mean, somebody breaks into your house and steals your device, that would be something that would be covered. If a student takes a device to a softball game and leaves it in the dugout and then somebody takes it, well, that may not be covered because in the handbook it says to make sure you're trying to use your device at school or at home. And losing that device and then having it taken would not really be counted as a theft there. So with those accidental fees, we do have a system of the first incident is $25, second is $30, and the third incident is $50. Those are just for unintentional events for those repair fees. And the final slide is what happens, if something breaks and it's deemed to be on purpose. Student throws down their device, they lose it, they intentionally cause damage, things like that. So here are your prices listed. The big one that I always point out is that complete replacement. If the device has to be replaced all in one shot there because it's beyond repair, close to $300. All right, so this is the iPad handbook. That is all the information that's really, really, really important in that big document. Students have or should have brought home their signature pages for parents to sign off on. And if you bring those back, we will get devices handed out to you, to the students next week. If for some reason you decide to opt out, that is fine. You just don't have to send back the form, and we will not give out those devices if forms are not brought back, and we'll get with teachers and figure out how to have those assignments without those iPads and without those devices. If you have any questions, please, you can reach me at jpeck, so it's JPECK, at CUSD15.org, or you may call the junior high, and our phone number is 935-2103. Again, that's 935-2103. This is Mr. Peck with the iPad Handbook.